Hello, and welcome to this Skill Me Up Academy webinar on Azure certification updates. We're going to go through in this webinar, not just Azure, but since data and security are so integrated into Azure, we're going to talk about the certification updates for all three of these certification areas. I'm Dwayne Natwick. I am a cloud training architect and an author. I am 18 times certified in Azure and Microsoft 365, including the certification badges that you can see on the slide. I'm also an Azure MVP and a Microsoft certified trainer and a regional lead for that program. I've been doing training for multiple years and have done various content creation and webinars and training for Opsagility, and I can be reached on the social media platforms provided on this slide. Let me tell you a little bit before we get started about Opsagility. Opsagility is a company that provides, they are a Microsoft certified solutions provider, cloud solution provider, and provide consulting. They host virtual events on their One Venue platform, as well as provide training and enablement, such as what we're doing right now with various webinars, as well as instructor-led training as a Microsoft learning partner, and do a lot of certification week events and various other things for Microsoft skills enablement as well. Their partnership status that Opsagility holds, they hold gold competencies in multiple areas, as well as some silver competencies as well, and been a Microsoft partner for many, many years. So let's talk about what we're going to discuss here today. We're going to talk first about where do you find the latest certifications and what you do, how you stay up to date on certifications. And then we're going to go through some of the changes that have happened recently around Azure certifications, data certifications, and security compliance and identity certifications. And then talk about next steps and how you can use the information that I'm providing here today to prepare yourself for a certification exam. So what's new and where do I find certifications? Let's talk about that first. So where do we find the latest certifications? And really one of the key places that we find these is in the certification posters. We have a link here that you can go to and learn the certification posters, and we'll post this link during the webinar to you and allow you to go to this link, and this is where you can find all the latest exams and how they're tied to what certifications, as well as go to Microsoft Learn. Microsoft Learn is a great resource and one that you can go in. What you're looking for. If you're looking for the solution architect exams that you need, you can find that certification, find the exams, find the objective areas. We'll talk as we go through the certifications a little bit more about objective areas. We're going to focus here, and if you look here, we've got your Azure certifications, we got our security, compliance, and identity certifications, and then we have some specialty certifications as well. And we'll talk a little bit about a couple of these that are somewhat new, but you can see that these are ever growing and continuously being added. We'll talk about a couple exams that aren't even on this slide as we go through this presentation. So let's go through some of the certification updates. Specifically, in this section, we're going to talk about Azure. So first off is the Azure Solution Architect Expert. The Azure Solution Architect Expert is one that's been around since Microsoft started their role-based certifications back in late 2018, I believe it was, when they started going to the AZs and moving away from the MCSE and MCSA and MCSD, for those of you that have been around Microsoft certifications for a while. The Solution Architect Expert was one that was brought out around the same time as the Azure Administrator, Azure Fundamentals, and all of those came about. The Azure Developer Associate, those all were kind of the first legacy role-based certifications. And if anybody that's taking this webinar and listening to this webinar right now might know that if you were one of those early adopters in the first phase of taking some of these role-based certifications, you actually got, when you renewed, a legacy certificate around some of these certifications as well. I've gotten for the administrator, for the solution architect, as well as the developer associate. But when this exam came out, there were two exams that really that were really the exams that were used for certifying for the solution architect. And it was first it was the 300 and the 301 that were utilized, and they also had a 302, which is a transition exam. If you had the cloud platform MCSE, you could take that exam and get the solution architect expert. They did a major update on that exam a couple years ago and renumbered that the 303 and 304. And I got a typo on this slide that I'll talk about here in a second. But the 303 and the 304 then were the two exams that were utilized for the Azure Solution Architect Expert, and that was the case until March 31st, 2022. March 31st, 2022, Microsoft officially retired the AZ303 and the AZ304. The slide says 305. It's actually the 304 exam that was retired. They introduced the 305 exam around November 2021 in beta. Then it went general availability in January. And what they've done with the 305 exam is they have now combined that as the design portion, the designing Microsoft Azure infrastructure solutions, with the AZ104 exam, which is the only exam you need for the Azure Administrator Associate. Taking those two and passing those two exams now gets you the Solution Architect Expert. It is long overdue to do this. As I taught the AZ104 exam and course, and people were passing that, they were like, what should I do first? And I would tell them, go for the Solution Architect, take the 303. You only have to spend a week or so learning a little bit more about containers and databases, and you're ready to go. And most people, I had 3 or 4 students that came back to me and said, yeah, I passed it about 2 weeks after the 104 exam was passed. So there was a lot of redundancy in those exams, and having that first, and having to go through taking another exam and spending your money for another exam to get to that expert tier. Microsoft realized that and took that a step, took that away, and now you only need one additional exam, just like you do for the DevOps. On the DevOps side, you get an associate exam, and then you take the second exam to get the expert level certification. The exam. And the new 305 course has 4 objective areas. So every exam has objective areas, and those objective areas give you an idea of the weighting of the exam and what topics you really need to focus on. And you can see here, it's spread fairly evenly, with the exception of business continuity solutions only being 10 to 15%. That's just because there's only a few, there's only, a couple of solutions that really are your business continuity. You have Azure Site Recovery, you have Azure Backup, and you have some other ways to do it within databases and things like that. But that's a little bit smaller than storage solutions and infrastructure solutions and identity governance and monitoring. But overall, it's going to be spread fairly equally. And if you were studying for the 304, it shouldn't be a hard transition to transition yourself to the 305. But you need to move to the 305 because the 304 is not available anymore as of March 31st. The next exam we're going to talk about is the Azure Network Engineering Associate. The Network Engineer Associate was one that came out. It's not very super new. It came out in November 2021 to GA, but it's become a very popular one. It was one that really didn't have the the networking side didn't have the love, so to speak, in terms of the role-based exam. So it was one that needed to be done. There is a network specialty in some of the other cloud providers. So Microsoft saw that gap and they filled it. It is much deeper than the networking that you get within the 104 exam, and even you get a little bit of networking in the AZ 500, the security engineer exam, but it's much deeper from a standpoint of really hybrid technologies and wide area network technologies. That's really a heavily focused area, as well as some things around private access and private links and things and those that are very rarely talked about in any other course. It is very expansive around networking. So if you are a network engineer, somebody that deals with networking, I recommend this exam. Very good exam. And again, we have 5 objective areas for this, and it is fairly evenly spread, except for really the routing portion is really a highly weighted area. There's a lot on user defined routes and system design routing and how you configure your routing through your wide area network, through your VLANs and VPN connections and your vWAN connectivity. Those are all different things that different networking technologies within Azure that really are focused on for this one. There is very little redundancy between the networking pieces and solutions that are talked about within this exam versus the AZ 104, where it does talk a little bit about networking. And like I said, the AZ 500, the security engineer exam, does cover a little bit of the of networking and network security, but this goes much deeper and wider. The next one I want to cover is one that has been very, very popular as well with its rollout, with Microsoft retiring a lot of the MCSE, MCSA exams. A lot of those 70- exams went away over the course of the last year, and a lot of people were concerned about there not being any Windows Server administration basis within the Azure certification portfolio. So February-March timeframe in 2022, the AZ 800 and the AZ 801 became GA. So the combination of these two give you Windows Server Hybrid Administrator Associate certification. So it's a two exam badge for the actual certification. They cover the hybrid core infrastructure and then hybrid advanced services, and we'll go into that in the next couple slides in terms of what the objective domains are within the two. So the 800 exam, which would be your first exam in the two, and think about these two exams as being very Windows Server focused and very focused on an on-premises type of infrastructure to a degree. You can see, it is both of these exams have in them hybrid infrastructure. So we're talking about and learning a lot about in the AZ 800 exam, Active Directory Domain Services, ADDS, for on-premises as well as cloud environments. You can see that's up to possibly 35% of the exam. We have Windows Server and workloads in hybrid environments. There's probably going to be a little bit around Azure AD Connect in there and how to use those Windows servers in both cloud and hybrid and on-premises environments, virtual machines and containers, how we're going to manage those and work together in that hybrid environment, on-premises and hybrid networking infrastructure. So a little bit probably of topics there that you find in the network engineer exam in terms of, express routes, VPN gateways, application gateways, web application firewalls. Those would all really fall into that. And managing storage and file services. So how do we connect databases in a hybrid network as well? There are capabilities within the Azure infrastructure that we can have a hybrid database infrastructure as well, and that objective domain is going to cover that as well. So very deep and broad topics here in managing and administering that server infrastructure. And you can see, it's Windows Server infrastructure really around here, with the exception really of the Active Directory domain services. This is the building of the infrastructure. It's not actually managing the Windows Server internally, from a operating system perspective. The next one, the 801, is the advanced services. So here we're getting into building high availability, securing that hybrid infrastructure on premises into the Azure cloud, disaster recovery, high availability, migration, and monitoring and troubleshooting Windows Server environments. So that last objective there of monitoring and troubleshooting gets a little bit more at the operating system level a little bit, as well as the infrastructure level. And so it gives you a good foundation as you're managing and working with your Windows Server infrastructure over both, over an on-premises and a Azure cloud environment. So really popular exam. I haven't dove into the topic areas quite yet on them, but I know a lot of people that have taken the exam and passed the exam and have been very pleased with this exam as well. Next up is the Azure Support Engineer Specialty. The beta exam on this one just opened on March 31st of 2022. I'm actually scheduled to take this in a couple weeks as in the beta. So usually when a beta comes out, you're looking at maybe 60 to 90 days before it goes general availability. If you do a search online and you want to take this, I think the beta closes at the end of April 2022 for anyone taking it. But you can find some discount codes. Usually just doing a search on the internet. Make sure you're looking at a reputable Microsoft post for that beta code, and you can generally get 40 to 80% off of the exam if you want to take the beta. Thing about taking betas, just to let you know, full disclosure, if you take a beta exam, you do not get your beta exam graded until it's general availability, and it's usually maybe even 2 weeks after. So if you want immediate results, wait till it comes to GA. Otherwise, you're going to still be waiting actually for your results, while other people that waited until GA took the exam and are getting their badges. So you'll start seeing badges, and you'll get some badge envy because people will be posting their badges on social media, and you're still waiting for your results. So there's a little bit of a trade-off there with getting the discount. And you can see every one of these objective domains is a troubleshoot domain. So as support engineer, you need to know how to fix problems, and that's exactly what this exam and this specialty is around. If you are an Azure administrator, you've taken the AZ 104, this is probably a good exam for you as well. Same thing with even if you're a network engineer, knowing how and understanding how to troubleshoot issues is going to be important in your role, and that's what this exam was created for. They've created a few of these specialties. I'm not talking about this webinar doesn't have anything to do with Microsoft 365 or Teams, but there's also I believe it's an MS 720, which is the Teams support engineer as well. So they're really starting to diversify some of these specialty areas to areas of support now. We've got a lot of administration, a lot of design and building, but once we get it built and we get it in production, what do we need to do from there? All right, let's talk about some the data certifications, which has really been an area of growth within the certifications here going forward. Let's talk about the Azure Enterprise Data Analyst Associate, the DP 500 exam. Another brand new exam, just went into beta and will be going into beta actually mid-April 2022. You'll be able to schedule this exam. So what you get here is now we are analyzing our data. Microsoft has taken this exam, and I believe the DA 100 exam, which we'll talk about here in a minute, and kind of broken them apart a little bit. This is very database focused, which fits right along the whole data engineering aspect of the DP exams, much more around analyzing data and working with data models and visualizing data from our data analytics perspective within our various databases. The DA 100 has been moved out of the Azure area and moved into Power Platform and focusing now more on Power BI. And we'll talk about that one here in a couple slides and the change around that. But they've kind of instead of the fact that they've removed DA 100 and they didn't replace it with anything, they do have that data analyst piece here and an associate level exam with the DP 500. And again, 4 objective areas and spread very equally, so you can expect that each one of these objective domains, the amount of questions that you get out of the exam database are going to be fairly spread fairly equally. Next up is the DP 420 exam, which is the developer specialty for Cosmos DB. This one just went GA in March 2022. Again, been a very popular exam and has now, 5 objective areas. The designing and implementing data models is really your heavy piece, and the maintaining the Azure Cosmos DB solution. You can see design and maintain are your two heavily tested areas, and then data distribution and integration and optimization are a little less of a focus area, but all the same, you have to take those into account. So again, this one is generally available, so you can prepare for and study for it and take this exam now. And if you pass, you get your immediate badge on that one. Next up is, as I said, we were going to come back to this one. This is the DA 100. The DA 100 was just retired March 31st, 2022, and moved to the Power Platform certifications and redesigned as PL 300, which is now a Power BI Data Analyst Associate. So you can see, we took the DA 100 exam, which was analyzing data with Microsoft Power BI. And Microsoft re-swizzled it a little bit, moved a lot of that content to PL 300, and then created that DP 500 data analyst that's much more focused on the database engineering and working with storage and data workflows and hot and cold streams, and how we're going to work with that data that comes in through our IoT devices and all those things. But if you're a Power BI person and more Power Platform focused, you have the PL 300, which so they're very there's probably some parallels between the two in terms of data ingestion and how that all works. But think of the PL 300 as going to be much more data that's coming from Power Apps and Power Automate and those types of citizen developer type solutions. Versus the DP 500 is going to be right along your data pipeline and your Synapse Analytics and Cosmos DB and all of those things. So we've gone through the changes in Azure, changes in the data side within Azure as well, because most of those DP exams do focus on Azure database and storage technologies. Let's talk a little bit about security, compliance, and identity certification updates to give you, kind of give you that full rounded focus. Now, security, compliance, and identity, those certifications bridge both Azure as well as Microsoft 365. So when we do a certification webinar of certification updates on Microsoft 365, you might see some of this content again, but it's very important and it's a very key piece to what Microsoft is doing in terms of the certification roles moving forward. So let's give a little bit of background in security, compliance, and identity in those exams. The SC 900, which is the fundamentals exam, the 200, the 300, and the 400 are now a year old. They came out after the Spring Ignite the 2021 Spring Ignite, and were released around April. Went into beta around April 2021, and so them being a year old now, there are some updates coming to those objective areas here in, I believe, May. Those changes are going to roll out. I was involved in a couple of those those role-based job task analysis workshops to identify any changes that needed to be made. And there are some significant changes around these exams. So if you're preparing for any of these exams right now, I would suggest get those scheduled and taken before probably the objective changes are going to go out, I think, around May. You might not see changes in the actual exam questions probably until maybe June or July timeframe for these exams. Just to give you kind of a frame of reference. Usually there's a little bit of a lag and a little bit of time that you'll have to once those objective areas come out before really that exam bank changes. Like I said, there are some significant changes. I don't think much was taken out of the exam. There were just some areas that needed a little bit more focus. Again, all the content's going to be updated so you can understand that. You'll see the objectives on Microsoft Learn to get that information and get what you need out of to understand what has changed. Microsoft gives full transparency on what they've changed within these environments as well. So keep that in mind. But again, there are some updates and things that have been added into these exams, but for the most part, the time base to prepare for the exam, the Microsoft Learn content is all structured still to work within the same time frame. Same thing with instructor-led training. They're not really changing it to the point where it's going to affect, it's not taking an SC 300 4-day class and make it a 5-day class. And really the fundamentals exams, they're making changes to a lot of those fundamentals exams to compress those into a 6-hour training so that you can do that in one day and really all fundamentals exams and fundamentals instructor-led training will be a 1-day class going forward. They're going to eliminate some of the 2-day classes that they had with mainly AZ 900 and MS 900. Very excited about this one, being somebody that really gravitates to the security side of things. Out in beta as of, I believe, Friday, April 1st, or actually Friday, April 8th was the SC 100 exam. So as of April 22, we now have in beta a SC 100 exam, which that exam is going to lead you down the path to Microsoft Cybersecurity Solution Architect Expert. So we have within Microsoft an expert cybersecurity badge and certification. Now, what you need to do to get this badge is you need to pass that SC 100 exam and any one of the other exams here in the middle of this slide. So you have one prerequisite plus another exam gets you the cybersecurity architect expert exam. So you can, if you have passed the SC 200, which is the security operations analyst associate, the SC 300, which is the identity and access administrator associate, the AZ 500, the Azure security engineer, or the MS 500, which is the Microsoft 365 security administrator. Any of those 4 associate level exams, only one of them is necessary. You pass that and pass the SC 100, you get your expert badge. Very exciting news. Microsoft is leading the way, I think, in terms of the security certifications. When you look at the other hyperscalers, AWS does have a security specialty, and Google has a security engineer professional. So which would be about the equivalent to, I think, this cybersecurity architect to a certain degree, but it's a single exam. It doesn't have the foundational backing of all of these associate exams that came out last year. So it takes you much deeper and wider, especially because it does focus, the cyber security architect exam does focus again on not just Azure technology, but also some Microsoft 365 technology, just like the security operations analyst does that as well. So what are the objective areas of the cybersecurity architect exam? You can see here, it's all about designing and evaluating strategies and building a security, compliance, and identity strategy and design and architecture within your Azure, your Microsoft 365, your cloud environments for multi-cloud, as well as your on-premises environments. So it touches just about everything that is security based within the Microsoft Azure and Microsoft 365 environment, and how we can design and evaluate these things, how we design and build a strong security posture and design for security posture management within Microsoft 365 Defender and Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Really big on the Microsoft cybersecurity solution architecture. If you pull that particular piece, that particular methodology out within Microsoft Docs, that is a very strong foundational part of this particular exam. And content's still being developed for this exam. Like I say, if you want to take the beta, you look at the objective areas. You're going to have to focus on Microsoft Docs. Again, look at the MCRA, the reference architecture for Microsoft cybersecurity. That's a very strong foundation to this exam. So those are the updates. So what are your next steps? What is your takeaway and what you want to do and where you want to take this? Start your certification journey. If you're not certified in Microsoft Azure or security or data and you want to, go to Microsoft Learn. There is content available there. That's always what I say is your good first step. Look at the fundamentals exams. Get you a good foundation and broad range to decide which direction you want to go. And there are fundamentals exams for Azure, for data engineering, for AI, for security, compliance, and identity, for Microsoft 365, for Power Platform, for Dynamics. Any of those areas, you can get an idea of what you're interested in and what suits your job role by going through that content and then taking those exams. It gets you that first level of certification. None of the fundamentals exams are a prerequisite to getting any of the associate or expert exams, but I always recommend it gets you familiar with the Microsoft's testing methodology, as well as those exams are less expensive than the associate and expert exams. They generally run less than $100 US, and you can usually Microsoft does some virtual training days that you can attend a 1-day virtual training day and actually get a fundamentals exam voucher through those as well. Instructor-led training. Opsagility provides a number of instructor-led training courses. If you work for a company that is a CSP and participates in the ESI, the Enterprise Skills Initiative within Microsoft, you can get discounts on that training. Check with your partner alliance manager, and they can help you out there. You can also, through that program, get discounts on those associate and expert level exams as well. And I can't stress this enough that to do labs and do hands-on practice. Get a free Azure subscription. Follow along with different labs and exercises. Microsoft Learn does have some built-in sandboxes that you can do some lab work in as well. If you take an instructor-led course, there's a lot of hands-on labs and practice that you're going to do, and that's really a strong benefit to having a class led by a Microsoft certified trainer and build on your skills in a safe environment. You're not working in a production environment. You're working in a lab-built environment, but it gets you used to the environment. And then when you go to take the test, you are not surprised by anything because you're like, oh yeah, I remember how to do that and things like that. So that's always my recommendation: instructor-led training, labs, hands-on, especially for associate and expert level exams. Microsoft Learn provides enough information a lot of times to pass a fundamentals exam, but when you get into the associate and the expert level, you really need to get hands-on and get your hands dirty in those environments. That brings us to the end of this webinar. So we talked about where to find these certifications, and we can find those on Microsoft Docs. If you just do Microsoft certification poster on your on a search engine, you can generally find that poster that I referenced in the early presentation. We have our Azure certifications. We talked about our data certifications. We talked about our security certifications, and then what you need to do next to continue or start your cloud journey. And with that, there's a number of upcoming webinars. I referenced a Microsoft 365 certification update. That's coming up May 3rd. Power Platform updates are May 17th, and Dynamics updates are May 31st. So feel free to attend those. You can find those. I know there's a lot of social media posts going around to give you the registration links, as well as the Opsagility website. Go to opsagility.com, and you can find the latest webinars. Connect if you want to, if you're interested in any instructor-led training, generally for both for your organization as a custom-based training, or if you're just looking to get yourself into a course. Microsoft Opsagility provides courses. The schedule is again on their website. But if you need any consulting work or any virtual conference assistance, go to sales@opsagility.com or call the phone number on here on this slide, and they will be happy to help you. So again, my name is Dwayne Natwick. I want to thank you for attending this webinar. I hope it was helpful to you, and have a great day.